Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Ask Pastor Pop. This week we're talking about Easter. I'm really excited about this. I think it's a great topic for this week. I hope y'all are going out to celebrate Easter. If you're not a non-believer, I'm so glad that you're here to learn more about this topic. This is a really big deal. I'm just so excited for this. Dad, I know it's a crazy week for you, but how are you
It
doing?
is. I'm doing okay. It's, as we record this, it's the start of Holy Week, so it's Monday. But you're right. It's a very intense week. There's lots of sermons to write. There's lots of services to lead. But, I really enjoy it. This is really the best part of the year for me because there's such a hyper focus on the thing that matters most, the death and resurrection of Jesus. And so despite the busyness, despite the really heavy lift on pastors and church leaders this time of year, I don't think any of us would trade it for anything because we get to pay so much attention to and spend so much time with the thing that matters the most to all of us, to all followers of Jesus, the fact that he lived, died, and rose for us. That's what this week is all about.
That's amazing. And I'm so glad that we had the time to sit down and talk about this. And like you were saying, there's a lot to do this week on
Mhm.
your side of things. There's a lot of sermons to write. And I'm your daughter, I've seen it firsthand how much you have to do. But beyond all of the celebration, the planning, just Easter in general, what does Easter mean to you personally? What's your favorite part about it? What speaks to you the most? Tell us some about that.
Well, it's the whole Holy Week journey. That's what matters the most to me. It's not just about Sunday morning when we celebrate the fact that he's risen from the dead, which of course, that's hugely important. But for me, it's made important in no small part by the week that precedes it and making sure that from Palm Sunday through Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, all of it, you are preparing your heart and mind to really receive the full impact, the full weight, and experience the full joy of what Jesus has done in dying and rising for us. And so for me, I really enjoy the whole week leading up to Easter and taking my time to prepare myself for the joy of Easter morning. And so what that looks like for me is taking time. I did it this morning with a group of guys that I meet with on Mondays to read the account of Jesus's death on the cross. Today we read it from Mark chapter 15. I'll also take a couple of days during this Holy Week to fast, to abstain from like solid food meals, just to align myself a bit with the weakness and the mortality that Jesus experienced, and to create some space for me to think and pray in those times when I would otherwise be, enjoying a big fat lunch or something like that. I can instead, think about Jesus and let my hunger remind me of the weakness and the struggle that he embraced for me. And then, of course, arriving at Maundy Thursday services and Good Friday services with a heart of expectation, wanting to be told yet again the story of Jesus serving us in washing feet and establishing the Lord's Supper on Maundy Thursday, and then watching him die for us on Good Friday, and then waiting on Saturday and wondering, and then on Sunday just celebrating with all joy. And so for me, it's really the whole week. I look forward to the whole week and taking intentional time to prepare myself for the full celebration on Easter Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite part too. Just everything that you do in the week leading up. Because Easter, it's amazing, but like you said, it's everything leading up to it that makes it even more special. And walking through what Jesus walked through is pretty incredible. Um, but the whole point of Easter is that Jesus rose again and he defeated death and brokenness. Um, but something that I've heard from people who struggle in their faith, or something I've questioned too, is yeah, Jesus rose, but I still struggle every day. I still see brokenness every day. I'm just struggle in general. But if Jesus rose, how am I supposed to handle the everyday struggles if Jesus supposedly defeated all of those things, but I still struggle every single day? Do you know what I'm trying to ask? How should we
Yeah,
face
yeah,
those? How should we view them?
yeah. Well, the people who raise that question or have that concern, I mean, it's valid. Jesus did rise from the grave, and he's defeated death. And yet we still have difficulties. We still struggle. It's not as though he suddenly took all death and difficulty off the plate for all of humanity right now. Certainly that will happen when he returns. But for right now, though he is risen, we still wrestle and we still struggle. What Easter does for us, however, is it gives us an opportunity to reframe our experiences, our difficult experiences, and to reprioritize our lives and how we see things and understand things. Here's what I mean. Jesus is risen from the dead. He died and then he rose. He defeated death. And what that means is that death will not get the last word for any one of us who belongs to him. And so it allows us to reframe all difficulty, even the worst thing, which is dying, and reframe it in a way that says, this is not ultimate, it is not the end. I know that it's hard now, but it will not get the last word. One of the things that I like to say is that in Jesus' rise from the grave, he changed the punctuation of human existence. Death used to be a period at the end of the sentence. Now, death, because of Christ, is a comma. There's more to come. And so what we're able to do is, as we endure difficulties, tragedies, hardships, is constantly reframe them in light of the fact that we live in a world where resurrection has happened and it's promised to us in Jesus Christ. And so we don't minimize our difficulties. We don't try to somehow ignore them. Instead, we say, yes, this has happened. This is difficult. And yet Christ is risen. I know it won't get the last word. I know that my story ends with rejoicing and celebration, not with mourning and in this moment. And so there's a constant reframing that happens. We live in a resurrected world. Death will not get the last word. You know, on Easter Sunday, Christians around the world, they take part in this refrain where someone up front, the pastor, the priest, whoever, will say, Christ is risen. And then the congregation will say, he is risen indeed. Alleluia. Well, that has an origin, and the origin is from the earliest Christians outside of worship services. The earliest Christians would greet each other in that way, a way of saying, I believe that we live in a whole new world because Christ has risen. Do you believe that we live in a whole new world because Christ has risen? They would meet each other on the road, or they'd gather together in one another's homes, and they would say, Christ has risen. And the other person would say, he's risen indeed. And it was a way of reminding each other that we live in this world where death has been defeated. It's been defeated. We know the end of the story, and that allows us to reframe and refocus and hold on in the midst of our own difficulties. And so I would just tell people, encourage them to take up that invitation to constantly reframe their difficulties in light of the fact that resurrection happened to Jesus, and it will happen to all who belong to him, and that though this thing is difficult now, it will not be hard and difficult forever.
Yeah, that's good. And something that I see a lot is Easter happens once a year. We celebrate once a year. And for me, that helps me reframe my mind. I leave refreshed after service, just remembering what happened, what Jesus did for me, all of that good stuff that we hear on Easter. But the resurrection happened a long time ago. And like you said, Jesus already resurrected. We live in a resurrected world. Like, it happened, but we celebrate once a year. And honestly, how can we keep that Easter mindset, that Easter reframing that we experience once a year? How can we keep that going throughout the rest of the year?
Well, I would offer one small correction to your thinking, Ava, and that is we don't celebrate Easter once a year. We celebrate Easter once a week. That's what Sunday is. That's why the day of worship for Christians moved from the Sabbath day of Saturday to Sunday, because Jesus rose on a Sunday morning, and the earliest believers recognized that this changed everything. This changed everything. We now live in a world where death has been defeated, and Jesus was the first fruits of those who will rise. That's what the New Testament says. The first fruit is the earliest fruit that appears in the harvest, in the earliest part of the harvest cycle. And it's evidence that there will be a fuller harvest to come. Like, oh, look at this one thing that sprouted through. That means the rest of it's going to come too. And the scriptures say Jesus was the first fruits of those who will rise, which means there will be a larger harvest of other people who will rise from the dead. That's all of us when he returns, right? So we live in that kind of world, and we celebrate it not just on Easter Sunday, but we celebrate it every Sunday. That's why we moved our worship to Sunday mornings, because we want to celebrate the resurrected reality that we live in through Jesus Christ each and every week. And so I would encourage people to see Sunday mornings as an Easter morning each and every week. And it's a chance to be reminded, reframed, refocused on the fact that we live in a world where death, in fact, has been defeated. Sin has been paid for, death has been defeated, and the world that we see is very different than the world Jesus has invited us into. We see death, destruction, and decay, but we know that Jesus has risen, and this death, destruction, and decay will not last. And so each and every week we have an opportunity to reset our hearts and minds. And that's why, and I know I'm biased in this because I'm a pastor and like I run a church and I'm big on people coming to church, but that's why like regular church attendance is so critical. Because yes, God is going to give you his gifts in that regular church attendance. He's going to preach his word to you. He's going to feed you the Lord's Supper. You're going to see people getting baptized like you've been baptized, and all of that's going to fill you and change you. But it's also a chance to just reset and be reminded each week, I live in this world where resurrection has happened. This is my reality. And so I just encourage like regular rhythms of worship, especially Sunday mornings, where you can have an Easter each week and then step out into a new week reminded of, okay, all right, Jesus is risen. He's risen indeed. I live in a world where death won't get the last word and my sins don't define me. Okay, go. Now let's go. Let's go get after it.
Yep. I love it. That's so good. Well, Dad, happy Easter. I hope y'all go
Happy
out
Easter.
and celebrate at your local churches. And yeah, I hope y'all have a great week. And thanks, Dad, for making time during your hectic week to sit down and talk about this. I really appreciate it.
Hey, of course. Hey, I'm going to leave our listeners with one more thing. I am certain that there are people who are watching this, listening to this, who have doubts about whether or not the resurrection really happened. And I just want to encourage you, if you're wondering about that, to just go investigate it. Go investigate it, Google it, search it up, have chat, run a whole thing on it about whether or not this really happened. Because the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the most historically verifiable incident in human history. Nothing has been wrestled with more, challenged more, documented more than the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And so if you want to find out for sure whether or not this happened, go dig into it, look into it, because you will find incredible evidence to support the fact that this really happened. It's not a myth. It's not a story we tell ourselves to comfort ourselves, but this really did happen. Go check it out. And on that note, I mean, we have as part of the Christian tradition, we have about 5,000 early manuscripts of the Christian scriptures. 5,000, right? By comparison, when we think of authors like Plato and Homer, people we celebrate from the ancient world, we have like maybe 3 or 4 ancient manuscripts, copies of what they wrote, and yet we don't question their authority or existence. The scriptures are unparalleled in the historical support that they have, both in the manuscripts, but then also in the historicity of what actually event-wise took place. So go and check it out. Go and check it out. This event changed the world, and there's a reason why 2,000 years later, we're still celebrating it. Something happened that is still resonating and reverberating throughout history, and I encourage you to go check it out. Okay,
Yep.
That's it.
No, I mean, I've found whenever I've investigated, my faith has only gotten stronger. I mean, there's just so much evidence for it. It's incredible. And I'm so excited to come back home and celebrate with everyone.
Hey, we're excited to have you.
Thanks. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week for our last episode.